The cry beneath the earth. The scream came from inside the earth itself. Ethan Cole reined his horse to a sudden halt, breath hanging white in the October air. The cry rose again, thin, small, impossible. His pulse kicked hard. No homesteads stood for miles, no settlements, just skeletal mine shafts and collapsed wells scattered across these Montana highlands like forgotten graves. He swung down from the saddle, boots hitting frozen ground. The sound came a third time, clearer now, a child's voice, terrified but controlled. "Help! Somebody, please!" Ethan ran toward the collapsed well, already knowing his quiet, careful solitude was about to shatter forever. If you're watching from somewhere in this world, drop a comment with your city below. I want to see just how far this story travels. Hit that like button and stay with me till the end. The earth had swallowed her whole. Ethan dropped to his knees at the edge of the collapsed well, peering into darkness that seemed to breathe. 20 feet down, maybe more, a small shape huddled against crumbling stone. Dirt-streaked face, wide eyes catching the last threads of daylight. "You hurt?" His voice came out rougher than he intended. "My ankle." The girl's words were steady despite the tremor underneath. "It's stuck under a rock." 6 years old, maybe 7, blonde hair matted with mud, dress torn at the shoulder, and alone, completely alone, in country that could kill a grown man in half a dozen ways before sunset. Ethan's jaw tightened. He scanned the horizon. No wagon tracks. No footprints but his own, and the small ones leading to the well's edge. The autumn wind carried nothing but the smell of sage and coming snow. "What's your name?" "Lily." "I'm Ethan." He tested the well's stone edge with his weight. Old construction, mining territory. The supports had given way recently, fresh dirt still crumbled inward. "Can you move at all?" "A little, but it hurts." He stood, mind already working through angles and leverage. His horse, Smoke, stood 30 yards back, reins trailing. The rope coiled on his saddle might reach. Might. "Lily, I'm going to get you out, but I need you to stay real still. Can you do that?" "Yes." No crying, no panic, just that small, certain voice rising from the dark. Something about it made his chest constrict. Ethan moved fast. He grabbed the rope from his saddle, tied one end around Smoke's horn, tested the knot twice. The other end he fashioned into a loop, crude but functional. He approached the well again, feeding rope into the darkness. "I'm lowering a rope. When it gets to you, slip it under your arms. Tie it if you can, but if not, just hold on tight." "Okay." The rope descended. Ethan watched it disappear into shadow, counting the seconds. When it stopped, he heard her small grunt of effort. "Got it." "Can you tie it?" A pause. "I think so. My mama showed me knots." "Your mama?" The words hung in the cold air. Ethan glanced around again. Still nothing. No one. "Where's your mama, Lily?" Silence from below. Then, "I don't know." His stomach dropped. "All right. Focus on the rope. Make the knot like she showed you." Minutes passed. The wind picked up, carrying the mineral smell of exposed rock. Ethan's hand stayed steady on the rope, feeling the small tugs and shifts as the child worked below. The sun had started its descent toward the western peaks. 2 hours of daylight left. Maybe less. "I did it!" Lily's voice carried a note of pride. "Good girl, now listen careful. When I start pulling, you're going to lift off the ground. It might hurt your ankle. If it hurts too much, you tell me and I'll stop. Understand?" "I understand." Ethan wrapped the rope around his gloved hands, braced his boots against stone, and pulled. The rope went taut. He felt her weight, lighter than expected, too light, and pulled again. Hand over hand, steady. The rope burned through his gloves. His shoulders took the strain. A small cry from below. He stopped. "You all right?" "It hurts, but keep going." Something in those words, that child's courage wrapped in pain, made him pull harder. The rope scraped against the well's edge. He could hear rocks falling, the whisper of disturbed earth. His muscles screamed. He didn't stop. Her hand appeared first, small fingers gripping stone. "Almost there, Lily. Almost." He grabbed her wrist, pulled, and she came up over the edge in a tumble of dirty dress and tangled hair. She collapsed against the ground, gasping. Her left ankle was swollen, already purpling, but she was out. She was breathing. She was alive. Ethan sat back on his heels, his own breath coming hard. "You're safe now." Lily looked up at him. Her face was smudged with dirt and tears she hadn't let fall, and her eyes, pale blue, startling, fixed on him with an intensity that made him look away. "Thank you, mister." "Ethan," he corrected quietly. "Can you stand?" She tried, gasped, shook her head. He scooped her up before she could protest. She weighed almost nothing, all bones and determination. He carried her to Smoke, who snorted but held steady as Ethan settled her in the saddle. "We need to find your mama. She'll be looking for me." Lily's voice carried absolute certainty. "She always finds me." Ethan swung up behind her, keeping one arm around her waist to steady her. "Where were you coming from?" "The woods. We were walking to town." "Which town?" "I don't know. Mama just said we had to keep walking." Alarm bells rang in his head. A woman and child walking through wilderness, no supplies he could see, running from something or someone. He turned Smoke south toward the nearest settlement, a rough collection of buildings called Birch Creek, 2 hours away if they pushed. The girl sat silent in front of him, small hands gripping the saddle horn. "Your ankle's going to need looking at," Ethan said. "There's a woman in Birch Creek who helps with injuries." "What's her name?" "Mrs. Patterson." "Is she nice?" "Nice enough." Lily was quiet for a moment, then, "Are you nice?" The question caught him off guard. "I don't know. I suppose that depends." "You saved me." "That's nice." Ethan didn't answer. Niceness had nothing to do with it. You didn't leave a child in a well. That wasn't virtue. That was baseline humanity. They rode in silence for a while. The land opened up around them, rolling hills covered in brittle grass, stands of aspen already bare. The mountains rose in the distance, their peaks white with early snow. It was country Ethan knew like his own heartbeat. Country he'd come to for its emptiness. "Do you live near here?" Lily asked. "Not far." "Do you have a family?" His jaw tightened. "No." "Why not?" "That's not a polite question." "Mama says questions are how we learn." "Your mama's raising a curious child." "Mama says curious is good. Ignorant is dangerous." Despite himself, Ethan felt the corner of his mouth twitch. "Your mama sounds smart." "She is. She knows all kinds of things. She can read and write and do numbers. She taught me my letters." "That's so." "I can write my whole name. Lily Ann Hartwell." Hartwell. The surname meant nothing to him. "That's a fine name. What's yours? Your whole name?" "Ethan Cole." "Do you have a middle name?" "James." "Ethan James Cole." She said it like she was testing the weight of it. "That's a good name. Strong." He didn't know what to say to that. Conversation wasn't something he practiced much anymore. For 2 years, he'd spoken mostly to his horse and the occasional merchant in town. Words felt rusty in his mouth. The sun dropped lower. Shadows stretched long across the grass. Ethan urged Smoke faster, aware of the child's weight against his chest, the way she'd started to shiver despite the blanket he'd wrapped around her shoulders. "You cold?" "A little." He shifted, pulling her closer. She didn't resist, just settled against him like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Tell me about your mama," he said, "so I know her when I see her." "She's pretty. She has brown hair, long, and brown eyes. She's tall, taller than most ladies. And she's brave. Real brave." "What's she brave about?" Lily's small body tensed. "Things." Ethan filed that away. "What were you doing out here, you and your mama?" "Walking." "Walking where?" "Away." "From what?" Silence. "Lily, I'm not supposed to talk about it." The fear in her voice was real. Ethan felt his protective instincts kick in, sharp and immediate. "All right, you don't have to tell me anything you don't want to." She relaxed slightly. "Mama says some things are private." "Your mama's right." They crested a hill, and Birch Creek came into view, a scatter of wooden buildings huddled around a single dirt road. Smoke from chimneys rose straight up in the still air. Lamplight already glowed in windows. Ethan guided Smoke toward the largest building, Patterson's General Store, which doubled as the town's informal gathering place. He dismounted, then carefully lifted Lily down. She winced when her injured foot touched ground. "Wait here." He pushed through the door. The store was warm, crowded with the smell of coffee and tobacco. 3 men sat around a stove in the corner. Mrs. Patterson stood behind the counter, a stern-faced woman in her 50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Ethan Cole. She looked him over with evident surprise. Didn't expect to see you till spring. Need your help. Got a child outside. Injured ankle. She's lost her mother. Mrs. Patterson was already moving, grabbing her shawl. Where'd you find her? Old mining territory, North Ridge. Alone? Yes. Her expression darkened. Bring her in. Ethan carried Lily inside. The men by the stove looked up, curious. Mrs. Patterson cleared a space on the counter, and Ethan set Lily down carefully. This is Mrs. Patterson, he told her. She's going to look at your ankle. Lily nodded, eyes wide as she took in the unfamiliar faces. Mrs. Patterson's stern expression softened slightly as she examined the swollen joint. You're a brave little thing, aren't you? That's what Ethan said. Did he now? Mrs. Patterson glanced at Ethan with something like amusement. Well, Ethan's not wrong. This is going to hurt when I touch it. You ready? Lily bit her lip and nodded. Ethan stepped back, giving them space. One of the men by the stove, Frank Cooper, a rancher from the Eastern Valley, stood and approached. Found her out by the mines? Yeah. Alone? Her mother's missing. They were traveling on foot. Frank's eyes narrowed. On foot? This time of year? That's what she says. That's damned strange. It was. Ethan knew it. Everything about the situation felt wrong. A woman and child, alone, walking through wilderness with winter coming, running. The word kept circling back. Sprained, Mrs. Patterson announced. Not broken. She'll need to stay off it for a week, maybe 2. I need to find my mama, Lily said immediately. We will, Ethan heard himself say. But it's getting dark. We'll look at first light. She'll be scared. If she's looking for you, she'll come to town. That's where anyone with sense would head. Mrs. Patterson wrapped the ankle with strips of clean cloth, her movements efficient. You can stay here tonight, child. I've got a room in the back. I want to stay with Ethan. Every head in the room turned. Ethan felt heat climb his neck. Lily, please. Her eyes, those unsettling pale blue eyes, fixed on him. You saved me. You're safe. Mrs. Patterson looked between them, eyebrows raised. Ethan doesn't exactly keep a home suitable for children. I don't mind, Lily said quietly. The room had gone very still. Ethan felt trapped, pinned by the weight of a child's trust he hadn't asked for and didn't deserve. It's not proper, he said finally. Proper went out the window when you pulled her from that well, Frank pointed out. She trusts you. That counts for something. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to explain that trust was a mistake, that he wasn't the kind of man who should be responsible for anything fragile or innocent. But Lily's hand had found his sleeve, small fingers gripping the rough fabric. Please. He looked down at her, saw the fear she was trying to hide, saw the exhaustion. One night, he said. Tomorrow we find your mother. Relief flooded her features. Thank you. Mrs. Patterson sighed. I'll pack some supplies. And Ethan, you bring her back here if you can't manage. No shame in it. Understood. 20 minutes later, Ethan was riding through darkness with Lily wrapped in blankets in front of him, a sack of food and medical supplies tied to his saddle. The temperature had dropped. Stars filled the sky like broken glass. His ranch sat in a valley 5 miles from town. A simple cabin, a barn, a few outbuildings. He'd built it himself after, when he needed somewhere to disappear. Lily had fallen asleep against his chest. He could feel her small heart beating, steady and trusting. The cabin was dark when they arrived. He carried her inside, lit a lamp. The interior was sparse, a bed in one corner, a table, a stove. Everything a man needed to survive and nothing more. He laid Lily on the bed, pulled quilts over her. She didn't wake. He stood there for a long moment, looking down at her dirt-smudged face. What the hell was he doing? He built up the fire, made coffee he didn't drink, paced the small room. Outside, smoke nickered softly from the barn. The night pressed close. At some point, he must have dozed in the chair by the fire. Because he woke to daylight streaming through the window and Lily's voice, small and scared. Ethan? He was on his feet instantly. What's wrong? She sat up in bed, eyes wide. I heard something outside. He listened, heard it too, the sound of a horse approaching fast. Ethan grabbed his rifle from above the door, moved to the window. A single rider, pushing hard. He couldn't make out features yet, but the desperation in the rider's posture was clear. "Stay here," he told Lily. He stepped outside into cold morning air, rifle ready but not raised. The rider came into focus. A woman, tall and slim, dark hair streaming behind her. Her horse was lathered, near collapse. She saw the cabin, saw Ethan, and pulled up hard, swung down before the horse fully stopped. "My daughter," her voice broke. "I'm looking for my daughter. 6 years old, blonde hair. She fell in a—" "She's safe." The woman stopped, stared at him. "What?" "Your daughter, Lily. She's inside. She's safe." The woman's legs seemed to give out. She caught herself against her horse, one hand pressed to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. She's fine. Sprained ankle, but fine." The door behind Ethan opened. Lily stood there, balanced on one foot, gripping the doorframe. "Mama!" The woman ran, dropped to her knees in front of the child, hands shaking as she touched Lily's face, her hair, her shoulders, as if confirming she was real. "Oh, baby. Oh, my baby. I thought—" "I'm okay, Mama. Ethan saved me." The woman looked up at him then. Brown eyes, just like Lily had said. Red-rimmed from crying, but sharp, intelligent. And underneath the relief he saw the same thing he'd sensed in Lily. Fear. She stood slowly, one arm around Lily. "Thank you. I can't—" Words failed her. She was in an old well, North Ridge mining territory. "I know. I was searching all night. When I couldn't find her, I thought—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "Thank you." "You should sit down. You look about ready to collapse." He expected her to refuse, but she nodded, let him guide her inside. Lily hopped along beside them. The woman sat at his table, and Ethan poured her coffee from the pot he'd made hours ago. She wrapped her hands around the cup like it could anchor her to the world. "I'm Marianne," she said finally. "Marianne Hartwell. Ethan Cole." "Mr. Cole, just Ethan." "Ethan." She met his eyes. "I owe you my daughter's life." "You don't owe me anything." "I do." Her voice was firm despite its shakiness. "And I don't know how I'll ever repay that debt." Ethan looked at her, really looked. Her dress was worn but clean. Her hands showed work. And there was something in the set of her shoulders, the way she held herself, that spoke of strength despite the fear. "Where were you headed?" he asked. Her expression shuddered. "West. That's a direction, not a destination." "It's all I have right now." Lily had climbed into her mother's lap, face buried in Marianne's shoulder. Marianne's arms wrapped around her tight. "You're running," Ethan said quietly. Marianne's eyes snapped to his. For a moment he thought she'd deny it, then her shoulders slumped. "Yes." "From what?" "From who?" She glanced down at Lily. "And that's all I can say." Ethan understood silencing himself for a child's sake. He nodded. "You need supplies. A wagon. Winter's coming. You can't walk through these mountains." "I know." Marianne's voice was barely a whisper. "But I don't have money for supplies. I have—" She trailed off. Nothing. She had nothing. Ethan stood, moved to the window. Outside, the valley stretched golden in morning light. He'd come here to be alone, to exist in the quiet space where grief couldn't quite reach him. And now his cabin held a woman and child who needed help he wasn't sure he could give, but he thought of Lily's small voice rising from the well. Thought of the way she'd gripped his sleeve. "You saved me." He turned back. "You can stay here, both of you, until you figure out your next move." Marianne's eyes widened. "We couldn't possibly—" "You don't have a choice." His voice came out harder than he intended. "Your daughter can't walk. You have no supplies. Winter's 2 weeks away, maybe less. You stay here, you rest, and when you're ready, we figure out where you're going and how to get you there safely." "Why would you do this for strangers?" Ethan looked at Lily, at her pale blue eyes watching him with that same unsettling certainty. "Because it's right," he said simply. Marianne's throat worked. She looked down at her daughter, then back at him. 1 week. We'll stay 1 week, and then we'll move on. I won't put you in danger." "Danger?" "It's best you don't know." But Ethan had already guessed. Violent husband, abusive father, a man who believed his family was property to be hunted and reclaimed. He'd seen it before, in another life. "All right," he said. "1 week." Marianne nodded, relief and fear warring in her expression. Lily, still wrapped in her mother's arms, looked at Ethan over Marianne's shoulder and smiled. It was a small thing, a child's smile, but it cracked something in Ethan's chest that had been frozen for 2 long years. He turned away, busied himself with the stove. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the cabin's shutters. The first snow would come soon, and with it, Ethan suspected, something darker than weather. The week Ethan had promised became 2, then 3. November settled over the valley like a held breath, bringing frosts that turned the grass silver each morning and ones that howled through the canyon at night. The first real snow came on a Tuesday, soft and relentless, blanketing everything in white silence. Marianne proved useful in ways Ethan hadn't expected. She could cook, not just survive the winter cooking, but meals that actually tasted like someone cared. She mended his shirts without being asked, organized the cabin's chaos into something livable, and never once complained about the cramped quarters or the work that came with keeping a household running through a Montana winter. Lily's ankle healed slowly. She spent her days reading from the 3 books Marianne had managed to salvage, worn volumes she protected like treasure, or watching Ethan work through the cabin's single window. Sometimes she'd ask him questions, endless questions, until Marianne would gently shush her. "Let the man work in peace, Lily." But Ethan found he didn't mind the questions. They filled the silence he'd grown too comfortable with. "Why do horses need shoes?" Lily asked one morning, perched on a stool in the barn while Ethan worked on Smoke's hooves. "Same reason you need shoes, protection." "But horses' feet are already hard." "Hard doesn't mean invincible." He set down the hoof, straightened. "Everything needs protecting, even strong things." Lily considered this with the seriousness she brought to everything. "Are you a strong thing?" "I suppose." "Who protects you?" The question landed harder than she could have known. Ethan picked up his tools, moved to the next hoof. "I protect myself." "That sounds lonely." He didn't answer. Couldn't. That night, Marianne waited until Lily was asleep before approaching him by the fire. She held a cup of tea, herbs she'd found growing near the creek, somehow still viable despite the cold. "We should talk," she said quietly. Ethan looked up from the wood he'd been whittling into kindling. "All right." She sat across from him, hands wrapped around her cup. The firelight caught the exhaustion in her face, the worry lines around her eyes. She was younger than he'd first thought, maybe 28, 29, but life had aged her in ways years couldn't measure. 3 weeks, she said. "That's longer than we agreed." "Weather's turned. You can't travel now." "I know, but that's not what I mean." She met his eyes. "I need to tell you the truth, or at least part of it." Ethan set down his knife, waited. "Lily's father," Marianne began, then stopped, started again. "His name is Thomas Hartwell. We were married when I was 19. He seemed normal, kind even, for the first year." "What changed?" "I got pregnant." Her voice went flat. "Suddenly, I wasn't a wife anymore. I was property, something to control." He started with small things, telling me what to wear, who I could talk to. Then it got worse. Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd heard versions of this story before. They always ended badly. When Lily was born, I thought maybe he'd soften, but it made him worse. He saw her as another thing to own, another tool to keep me in line. She paused, swallowed. 2 months ago he hit her. Not me, I was used to that. But her. She was crying because she'd spilled milk, and he... Her voice broke. She pressed her hand to her mouth, breathing hard. "That night," she continued after a moment, "I took what I could carry and ran. I had a little money saved, hidden where he couldn't find it. We took a stage west, then another north. I kept moving, kept changing direction. But he's looking for us. I know he is." "How do you know?" "Because I know Thomas. He doesn't give up, ever. If something is his, he takes it back. And in his mind, we're his." Ethan stared into the fire. The flames twisted and jumped, throwing shadows across the cabin walls. "Why tell me this now?" "Because you deserve to know what you're risking by letting us stay. If Thomas finds us, and he will eventually, he'll come here, and he won't come alone." "Alone?" He has money, connections. He'll hire men to track us. Maybe he already has. The weight of it settled over the room. Outside, wind rattled the shutters. Somewhere in the darkness, a coyote called. "You should have told me sooner," Ethan said finally. "I know, I'm sorry, She stopped. "I was scared you'd make us leave." "I still might." Her face paled. "Ethan." "But I won't." He looked at her. "You stay until spring, until the pass is clear and you can get somewhere safe. California, maybe. Or Oregon." "That's 4 months?" "I know." "Why would you do that? For strangers?" Ethan stood, moved to the window. Snow fell past the glass in thick, lazy flakes. "I had a family once. Wife and son. They died 2 years ago. Fever." He heard Marianne's sharp intake of breath. "I couldn't protect them," he continued. "Couldn't save them. They died, and I lived, and I came here because I didn't know what else to do." He turned back to her. "Maybe I can't bring them back, but I can keep you and Lily safe. I can do that much." Tears ran down Marianne's face. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be. It's not your grief to carry." She wiped her eyes, stood. For a moment she just looked at him, really looked, the way people rarely did. Then she crossed the room and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, calloused from work. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan nodded, couldn't trust his voice. She went to bed. He stayed by the fire, watching the flames until they died to embers. The next morning, he rode into Birch Creek. The town was quiet under its blanket of snow. He found Frank Cooper at the saloon, nursing coffee and talking weather with 2 other ranchers. "Ethan." Frank looked up with surprise. "Didn't expect to see you till spring." "Need information." Frank's expression sharpened. He gestured to an empty chair. Ethan sat. "That woman and child," Ethan said quietly. "They're staying with me through winter, but someone might come looking for them. Man named Thomas Hartwell. You hear anything about strangers asking questions, I need to know." Frank studied him. "This man dangerous?" "Very." "You taking on someone else's trouble, Ethan?" "Looks like it." One of the other ranchers, Bill Harding, an older man with a scar across his jaw, leaned forward. "What kind of man hunts his own family?" "The worst kind," Ethan said. Bill nodded slowly. "I'll keep my ears open. Anyone comes through asking about a woman and girl, I'll send word." "Appreciate it." Ethan bought supplies. More food, fabric for clothes, medicine. Mrs. Patterson raised her eyebrows when she saw the quantity. "Planning to feed an army?" "Planning to survive winter." "With guests, I hear." News traveled fast in small towns. Ethan didn't deny it. "The child's mother," Mrs. Patterson said carefully. "She in trouble?" "Yes." "Bad trouble?" "The kind that doesn't quit." Mrs. Patterson packed his purchases in silence for a moment. Then, "My husband was a hard man. Not violent, but hard. I know what it's like to feel trapped." She looked up at him. "You're doing right by them. Don't let anyone tell you different." Ethan paid, loaded his horse, and rode home through falling snow. He found Marianne outside the cabin, chopping wood. She'd wrapped herself in his spare coat, too big for her frame, and her breath came in white clouds. The pile of split logs beside her was respectable. "You don't have to do that," Ethan said. She lowered the axe. "Yes, I do. I won't be a burden." "You're not—" "I am, and I know it. So I'll work. I'll earn our keep." He dismounted, took the axe from her hands. "You'll also freeze to death. Get inside." "I can handle cold." "I'm sure you can, but I'd rather not test it." They stood there in the snow, stubborn wills colliding. Finally, Marianne smiled, just a little, just enough. "You're bossy." "I'm practical." "Is there a difference?" Despite everything, Ethan felt his mouth twitch. "Get inside, Marianne." She went, but she was laughing, and the sound of it did something strange to his chest. December came hard and fast. The snow piled higher. Temperatures dropped so low that water froze in the bucket overnight. Ethan spent his days managing the animals, repairing equipment, hunting when the weather allowed. Marianne kept the cabin warm, the meals regular, the small space livable. And Lily. Lily brought something neither of them expected: joy. She talked constantly, asked questions endlessly, invented games from nothing. She'd build elaborate structures from kindling, narrate stories to herself in voices that made Marianne laugh, and somehow convince Ethan to play checkers using rocks and pieces of bark she'd painted with berry juice. "You're terrible at this," she informed him one evening after winning her 5th straight game. "I'm out of practice." "You need to think 3 moves ahead." "I'll keep that in mind." She studied the board, then looked up at him. "Do you like having us here?" The question was so direct, so honest, it caught him completely off guard. He stopped, started again. "Yes, I do." "Good." She moved her piece. "Because I like being here, and Mama's happier now. She smiles more." Ethan glanced at Marianne, who sat by the fire mending socks. She didn't look up, but he saw color rise in her cheeks. "Your move," Lily prompted. He made it. She beat him again. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marianne and Ethan sat by the fire as had become their habit. She was working on a quilt, piecing together scraps of fabric into something useful. He was oiling his rifle. "She's right, you know," Marianne said quietly. "About what?" "I am happier. Happier than I've been in years." She set down her needle. "It scares me." "Why?" "Because happiness makes you forget to be careful. Makes you think maybe the danger's past, and that's when it catches you." Ethan set down the rifle. "You think he's still looking?" "I know he is. Thomas doesn't forgive, doesn't forget. Every day we're here, I wake up wondering if this is the day he finds us." "He won't get past me." "You can't promise that." "Yes, I can." She looked at him across the fire. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Why are you doing this, Ethan? Really? I told you." "No, you told me about your family, about grief, but that's not all of it." She leaned forward. "You're punishing yourself. You think if you save us, it'll make up for not saving them." The words hit like a fist. Ethan stood, moved to the window. "That's not fair." "Maybe not, but it's true." He pressed his forehead against the cold glass. Outside, the world was white and still. "I watched them die," he said quietly. "My wife, Sarah. My son, Daniel. I held them while the fever burned through them. I tried everything, every remedy, every prayer. Nothing worked. They died in my arms, one after the other, and I couldn't do a damn thing to stop it." "Ethan? So yes. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm trying to fix something that can't be fixed. But if I can keep you safe, if I can give Lily a chance at a childhood that doesn't include fear, then maybe their deaths weren't completely meaningless." Silence filled the cabin. Ethan could hear his own breathing, harsh and uneven. Then Marianne was beside him. She didn't touch him, didn't push, just stood there, solid and warm. "Their deaths weren't meaningless," she said softly. "They were loved by you. That's meaning enough." Something in Ethan's chest cracked open. He turned away before she could see his face. "You should sleep," he said roughly. "So should you." But he didn't. He stayed by the window long after she'd gone to bed, watching the snow fall and thinking about the past he couldn't change, and the future he might be able to protect. Christmas came and went. Marianne made it special for Lily. Cookies from precious sugar, small gifts carved from wood. Ethan gave Lily a doll he'd made, crude but functional. She cried when she opened it, clutching it to her chest like he'd given her the moon. "Thank you, thank you, thank you," she whispered. And Marianne gave him a shirt she'd sewn from fabric he'd bought weeks ago, not knowing it was meant for him. It fit perfectly. "You needed a new one," she said, not quite meeting his eyes. He wore it the next day, and the day after that. January brought the worst storms. They were snowed in for days at a time, the 3 of them in the small cabin with nothing but each other for company. It should have been claustrophobic. Instead, it felt like family. Ethan taught Lily to whittle. Marianne taught him to cook something beyond coffee and jerky. They played cards, told stories, survived. And somewhere in all that surviving, something shifted. Ethan noticed the way Marianne's hands moved when she talked, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was concentrating, the small smiles she got when Lily said something clever. He noticed and tried not to notice, because she was under his protection, his responsibility, and anything beyond that was dangerous territory neither of them could afford. But one night in late January, when a blizzard raged outside and the cabin felt like the only warm place in the world, Marianne fell asleep by the fire. Ethan should have woken her, should have sent her to bed. Instead, he took the quilt from the back of his chair and draped it over her shoulders. She stirred, eyes opening halfway. Ethan? Sleep. I've got first watch. Watch for what? Whatever comes. She smiled, already drifting back under. My protector. He sat down across from her, rifle across his knees, and kept watch until dawn. It was 2 days later when the warning came. Ethan had ridden to Birch Creek for supplies. The sky was clear, the air so cold it hurt to breathe. Frank met him at the edge of town, face grim. We have a problem. Ethan's blood went cold. Talk. 3 men came through yesterday, well-dressed, armed, asking about a woman and child matching your guest's description. What did you tell them? Nothing. Nobody in town said a word, but Ethan, they weren't asking polite. They were offering money. A lot of it. How much? $500 for information leading to their location. $500. That was a year's wages for most men, enough to tempt even honest people. Where are they now? Headed south, last I heard, but they'll be back. Men like that always come back. Ethan's mind raced. How long do I have? A week. Maybe 2 if the weather holds them up. That's not enough time. Enough time for what? Ethan looked at his friend. To get them out. To get them somewhere safe. Where? The passes are closed. You can't travel in this weather. Then I'll make it so they don't need to travel. Frank grabbed his arm. Ethan, don't do anything stupid. Too late for that. I let them stay. That makes this my fight. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. He rode home faster than was safe, Smoke's hooves throwing up chunks of frozen earth. His mind worked through options, discarding each one. They couldn't run, not in winter. They couldn't hide. The valley was too isolated, too easy to search, which left one option: stand and fight. He burst through the cabin door. Marianne looked up from where she was teaching Lily letters, alarm flashing across her face. What's wrong? They're coming. 3 men, maybe more. They're looking for you. All color drained from Marianne's face. How long? Week or 2. Oh no. She stood, hands shaking. Oh no, oh no. Mama? Lily's voice was small, scared. Marianne knelt beside her daughter, forced calm into her voice. It's all right, baby. Everything's all right. But her eyes, when they met Ethan's over Lily's head, said the opposite. That night, after Lily cried herself to sleep, Marianne and Ethan sat by the fire and made plans. You could leave, Marianne said. Take Lily, ride out before they get here. I'll stay. Tell them she ran off, buy you time. No. Ethan, no. His voice was iron. We don't separate. We don't give them any leverage. Then what do we do? He looked at her, at this woman who'd trusted him with her life, her daughter's life, who'd brought warmth back into his frozen existence. We make this place defensible. We prepare. And when they come, you'll get hurt, or worse. Maybe. I can't let you do that. You don't have a choice. Neither do I. This is happening, Marianne, and I'm not letting them take you. Her eyes filled with tears. Why? Why would you risk everything for us? Ethan reached across the space between them, took her hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling. Because somewhere along the way, he said quietly, you stopped being strangers, both of you, and I protect what's mine. Marianne's breath caught. Yours? He squeezed her hand. Mine. She was crying now, silent tears tracking down her face. I don't deserve this. Don't deserve you. That's where you're wrong. She leaned forward, rested her forehead against their joined hands. Ethan felt the warmth of her breath, the weight of her trust. We'll fight, she whispered. Together. Together. The next week was controlled chaos. Ethan reinforced the cabin's walls, built shutters that could be barred from inside. He stocked ammunition, checked weapons, created fallback positions in case they had to retreat. Marianne learned to shoot. She was a natural, steady hands, good eye, no hesitation when it mattered. Where'd you learn to focus like that? Ethan asked after she'd hit 3 targets in a row. Thomas used to take me hunting, back when he was still pretending to be kind. Her voice was flat. I got good at it because it was the only time he'd leave me alone. I could breathe out there. You can breathe here. She lowered the rifle, looked at him. I know. That's what scares me most. I've gotten used to breathing. 2 days before Frank's predicted timeline, it started snowing again. Heavy, relentless snow that buried the valley under fresh white silence. Ethan stood at the window, watching it fall. Maybe it'll slow them down, Marianne said beside him. Maybe. Lily was drawing at the table, humming to herself, oblivious to the storm gathering just beyond her mother's fear. If something happens to me, Marianne said quietly, you'll take care of her. Promise me. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me, Ethan. He turned, looked into her eyes, saw the fierce mother, the frightened woman, the person who'd become essential to his existence in ways he couldn't fully name. I promise. She kissed his cheek, quick, soft, over before he could respond. Thank you. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat by the window with his rifle, watching the darkness beyond the snow. And somewhere out there, moving through the cold Montana night, 3 men with hard eyes and harder intentions rode toward his valley. Toward the fight that would decide everything. The snow stopped near dawn. Ethan watched the sky lighten from black to gray to pale gold, his rifle still across his knees. He'd been awake for 36 hours straight. His eyes burned, his body ached, but he couldn't afford rest. Not now. Behind him, Marianne stirred. He heard the whisper of blankets, the soft pad of her feet on the wooden floor. Anything? Her voice was rough with exhaustion. Not yet. She came to stand beside him, wrapped in a quilt. Her hair hung loose around her shoulders. In the dim light, she looked younger, more vulnerable. Maybe they won't come, she said without conviction. They'll come. How can you be so sure? Because I know men like your husband. They don't stop. They don't forgive. And they sure as hell don't forget. Marianne pulled the quilt tighter. What if we're wrong? What if Thomas isn't sending them? What if they're not? The certainty in his voice ended the conversation. They stood together in silence, watching the valley emerge from darkness. The snow lay pristine and untouched, broken only by the tracks of small animals and the dark shapes of pine trees bent under their white burden. Beautiful. Peaceful. A lie. Lily woke an hour later, cheerful despite the tension threading through the cabin. She chattered through breakfast, asking Ethan about the horses, asking her mother about the story they'd been reading. Neither adult had the heart to silence her. Let her have this, Ethan thought. Let her have one more morning before the world crashes in. After breakfast, Marianne took Lily to the far corner of the cabin, away from the windows. She spread out papers and pencils, keeping her daughter occupied with drawing and letters. But her eyes kept darting to Ethan, to the rifle beside him, to the door he'd reinforced with extra boards. The day stretched long and quiet. Too quiet. Even the birds seemed to sense something wrong. It was mid-afternoon when smoke nickered from the barn. Ethan was on his feet instantly. Marianne, back room, now! She didn't argue, just grabbed Lily and disappeared through the door to the small storage room Ethan had prepared, windowless, reinforced, with supplies to last days if necessary. Ethan moved to the window, staying to the side where he couldn't be seen, scanned the tree line, saw nothing. But smoke wasn't wrong. Something was out there. Minutes passed. Then he caught it, movement at the edge of the woods. 3 riders, spread out, approaching slowly. They wore heavy coats, carried rifles. But it was their formation that told Ethan everything he needed to know. Professional. Military trained, maybe. Definitely experienced. They stopped 100 yards from the cabin. One of them, a tall man with a neat beard, dismounted and walked forward alone, hands raised to show they were empty. Hello in the cabin! His voice carried clear across the snow. We're not here for trouble, just want to talk. Ethan didn't respond. We're looking for someone. A woman and a child. We have reason to believe they might have passed through this area. We're prepared to pay generously for information. Still, Ethan said nothing. Let them wonder if anyone was home. Let them get nervous. The bearded man took another step forward. Look, we can do this easy or hard. Easy is you talk to us. We get our information, we pay you and leave. Hard is, well, I think you can imagine. Ethan's finger moved to the trigger guard. Not yet. Not until he had to. What's your name, friend? The man called. No reason we can't be civilized about this. From the back room, Ethan heard Lily's muffled voice, Marianne shushing her. His jaw tightened. The bearded man seemed to hear it too. His expression changed, hardened. He made a signal to the other riders. They spread out wider, flanking the cabin. That's when Ethan knew negotiation was over. He stepped into view at the window, rifle raised. That's far enough. The bearded man stopped, smiled. There we go. Finally. I was starting to think maybe you were deaf. I heard you. Now turn around and ride out. Can't do that, friend. We've got a job to finish. Your job ends here. See, that's where you're wrong. The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. The woman and child we're looking for, they belong to Thomas Hartwell. You know that name? I know it. Then you know he wants his family back, and Mr. Hartwell is a very generous man. He's willing to overlook any assistance you might have provided. All you have to do is let us take them home. This is their home now. The bearded man's smile faded. You really want to die for strangers? They're not strangers. Then you're a fool. Maybe, but I'm a fool with a rifle pointed at your chest. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to get back on your horse. You and your friends are going to ride out of my valley, and you're going to tell Thomas Hartwell that if he wants Marianne and Lily, he'll have to come through me first. The bearded man studied him for a long moment. Then he laughed, cold, mirthless. All right then, we'll do this the hard way. He turned and walked back to his horse, mounted. The three riders regrouped, talking in low voices Ethan couldn't hear. Then they rode away. But Ethan knew they weren't gone. They'd just changed tactics. He moved away from the window, went to the back room. Marianne sat on the floor with Lily in her lap, her face white with fear. They left, Ethan said. But they'll be back. Tonight, probably. How many? 3 that I saw. Could be more. Marianne closed her eyes. I'm so sorry. I never should have. Stop. Ethan knelt in front of her. You did what you had to do. You protected your daughter. There's no shame in that. But I brought this to your door. And I opened it. My choice. Now we deal with consequences together. Lily looked between them, confusion and fear warring in her small face. Are the bad men going to hurt us? Marianne pulled her closer. No, baby. Ethan won't let them. Promise? Marianne looked at Ethan, desperate hope in her eyes. I promise, Ethan said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Night fell fast. Ethan extinguished all the lamps, plunging the cabin into darkness. He positioned Marianne in the back room with a rifle and strict instructions not to come out unless he called for her. Lily stayed with her, clutching her doll, trying to be brave. Ethan took up position at the main window, rifle ready. The moon was nearly full, turning the snow-covered valley into a landscape of silver and shadow. Beautiful and deadly. He waited. An hour passed. Then another. The cold seeped through the walls, through his clothes. His breath came in white clouds. But he didn't move. Didn't blink more than necessary. Watching. Waiting. It was past midnight when he saw the first flame, small at first, just a flicker at the edge of his vision, then bigger, brighter. The barn. They'd set fire to his barn. Rage flooded through him, hot and immediate. Those bastards. Smoke was in there, the winter hay, everything he'd worked for, but even through the anger, he understood the tactic. They were trying to draw him out, get him away from the cabin, make him choose between the building and the people inside. Not a choice at all. He stayed where he was. The fire grew. Flames licked up the barn's wooden sides, hungry and bright. Ethan could hear smoke screaming, high, terrified whinnies that cut straight through his heart. His hands tightened on the rifle. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to save his horse, to do something, but he couldn't, because the moment he left the cabin, they'd move in, and Marianne and Lily would be defenseless. So he stayed, and listened to his horse scream, and hated himself for it. The barn's roof collapsed with a roar of sparks and flame. The screaming stopped. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Smoke, his companion for 3 years, gone. I'm sorry, he whispered to the darkness. I'm so sorry. The backroom door opened a crack. Ethan? Marianne's voice was thick with tears. The barn. I know. We have to. We stay here. That's what they want, for us to run out there and give them clear shots. But your horse is gone. His voice came out flat, dead. And if we go out there, We'll be gone too. Silence. Then the door closed. Ethan forced his attention back to the window, scanned the tree line. There, movement. Two shapes, using the fire's distraction to move closer. They were good, quiet. But the snow betrayed them, crunching softly under their boots. 50 yards. 40. 30. Ethan raised his rifle. 20 yards. He fired. The first man went down with a scream. The second dove for cover. Ethan tracked him, fired again. Missed. Return fire shattered the window. Glass exploded inward. Ethan dropped, rolled, came up at a different angle, fired 3 more shots in quick succession. Another scream, then silence. Ethan's heart hammered. His ears rang from the gunfire. He reloaded with shaking hands, adrenaline making his fingers clumsy. "Ethan!" Marianne's voice sharp with fear. "Stay down!" More shots. These from behind the cabin. They'd circled around, trying to flank him. Ethan spun, fired through the back wall where he thought the shooter stood. Wood splintered. Someone cursed. Then the front door exploded inward. The bearded man stood in the opening, rifle raised. "Enough!" Ethan swung his weapon around, too slow. He knew it even as he moved. The other man would fire first, would put a bullet in him before a shot rang out. But it wasn't the bearded man who fired. It was Marianne. She stood in the doorway to the back room, rifle braced against her shoulder, eyes cold and certain. The bearded man looked down at the spreading red stain on his chest, looked back up at her, and fell. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then Ethan was on his feet, crossing to Marianne, taking the rifle from her shaking hands. "Are you hit?" She shook her head, couldn't speak. "Lily?" "In the back, safe." "Stay with her, lock the door, don't come out until I say." "Ethan, go!" She went. Ethan heard the bolt slide home. He turned back to survey the damage. One man dead in his doorway. At least one wounded outside. Maybe 2. But that still left one unaccounted for. The barn fire was dying now, having consumed everything it could reach. Smoke and ash drifted through the air, acrid and choking. The cabin's broken window let in freezing wind and the smell of burning wood. Ethan moved carefully to the window, staying low, scanned the darkness. Nothing, just shadows and smoke and... There, a figure running toward the tree line, limping badly, wounded, retreating. Ethan could take the shot, should take it, eliminate the threat completely. But he lowered his rifle, let the man go, one to tell the tale, one to carry the message back to Thomas Hartwell that his hired guns had failed. The night went still again. Ethan waited another hour, rifle ready, before he was sure they were truly gone. Then he went to the back room, knocked softly. "Marianne, it's over." The bolt slid back. The door opened. Marianne stood there, Lily pressed against her side, both of them pale and wide-eyed. "Is it really over?" Marianne whispered. Ethan looked at the dead man in his doorway, at the shattered window, at the smoke still rising from his destroyed barn. "For tonight," he said. Lily pulled away from her mother, ran to Ethan, wrapped her arms around his waist. "You kept us safe." Ethan's hand came up automatically, rested on her head. "Yeah, little one, I did. But the cost. The cost of safety was written in ash and blood, and the silence where his horse's breathing should have been. They spent the rest of the night cleaning. Ethan dragged the dead man outside, covered him with a tarp. He'd deal with burial come daylight. Marianne swept up glass, boarded the broken window. Neither of them spoke much. What was there to say? Lily finally fell asleep near dawn, exhausted by fear and adrenaline. Marianne carried her to bed, tucked her in with gentle hands. When she came back, Ethan was standing in the doorway, staring at the barn's smoking ruins. "I'm sorry about your horse," Marianne said softly. "He was a good animal. And the barn can be rebuilt." He turned to face her. "You saved my life tonight. You saved ours first. That shot you made, through the doorway in the dark, that was..." He trailed off. "That was incredible. That was terrifying." Marianne's voice shook. "I've never shot a person before. Never even thought I could. But you did. When it mattered. Because I couldn't lose you." The words came out raw, honest. "I couldn't let him take you from us." Ethan stepped closer, reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her cheek. "Marianne, don't." She caught his hand, pressed it against her face. Don't say whatever you're about to say. Don't tell me this was just protection or duty or paying back some cosmic debt for your family, because I know better now. What do you know? That you care. About us. About me. She met his eyes. And I care about you. More than I should. More than is safe. Nothing about this is safe. I know, but I'm tired of being afraid, tired of running, and I'm tired of pretending that what I feel for you is gratitude when it's so much more than that. Ethan's throat worked. He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was confused, that proximity and danger had twisted her feelings into something they weren't. But he couldn't, because he felt it too. This thing between them, this connection that had grown from necessity into something deeper, truer. When this is over, he said carefully, when you're safe and the threat is gone, ask me again. And I'll tell you everything I'm feeling, everything I've been trying not to feel, but not now, not while you're still in danger. Why not now? Because if I start, I won't be able to think clearly, and we need clear heads, at least until Thomas Hartwell is dealt with permanently. Marianne studied his face, then nodded slowly. All right, but Ethan, when this is over, I'm holding you to that. I'm counting on it. She kissed his cheek, longer this time, more deliberate, then went to check on Lily, leaving Ethan standing alone in the cold morning light. The next day brought riders from Birch Creek. Frank Cooper led them, his face grim when he saw the burned barn and the tarp-covered body. We heard gunfire, Frank said. Took us till morning to get through the drifts. 3 of them, Ethan said. 1 dead, 1 wounded, 1 ran. And your barn. Yeah. Frank dismounted, walked to where the structure had stood. I'm sorry, Ethan. This is a hard loss. It's wood. It can be replaced. And your horse? Ethan's jaw tightened. Can't. The other men spread out, examining the scene. Bill Harding came over with something in his hand, a piece of paper, partially burned. Found this in the dead man's pocket. Thought you should see it. Ethan took it. It was a wanted poster. Marianne's face, sketched in rough detail, and below it, in printed type. Reward for information leading to the return of Marianne Hartwell and child to her lawful husband, $500. Lawful husband. The words made Ethan's blood boil. There's more, Bill said quietly. Got word this morning. Thomas Hartwell himself is coming. He's in Denver now, gathering more men. He'll be here inside a week. Ethan's stomach dropped. How many men? Reports say 10, maybe more. 10 armed men against 1. Those were bad odds, worse than bad. Frank put a hand on his shoulder. You can't fight that many, Ethan. You need to get them out, get them somewhere safe. Where? The passes are still closed. We can't outrun horses in this snow. Then you make a stand, but not alone. We'll help. Ethan looked at the men gathered around him, ranchers and shopkeepers. Good men, but not fighters, not soldiers. I can't ask you to risk your lives for this. You're not asking, Frank said firmly. We're offering. You're one of us, Ethan, and we don't abandon our own. One by one, the others nodded. Agreement, solidarity. Something in Ethan's chest loosened. He wasn't alone anymore. Hadn't been for months, really. But now he felt it. The weight of community, of people who had his back. All right, he said. Then we prepare. Because when Thomas Hartwell comes, we're going to be ready. They spent the next 3 days fortifying. Men from town brought supplies, weapons, ammunition. They built defensive positions, created fields of fire, turned Ethan's valley into a killing ground. It wasn't much, but it was something. Marianne worked alongside them, quiet and determined. She'd stopped apologizing for the danger she'd brought. Instead, she focused on preparing, loading rifles, rationing food, teaching Lily what to do if the fighting started. You stay in the back room, Marianne told her daughter. No matter what you hear, no matter how scared you get, you stay there until someone comes for you. Understand? What if nobody comes? Lily's voice was very small. Someone will, Ethan will, or I will, but someone will always come for you. Lily nodded, trying to be brave, but Ethan saw the fear in her eyes, the understanding that something terrible was approaching. On the 4th night, Ethan found Marianne outside, staring at the stars. She'd wrapped herself in blankets against the cold, breath coming in white clouds. You should be inside, he said. I needed air, needed space to think. He stood beside her. Above them, the stars burned cold and distant. Do you think we'll survive this? Marianne asked quietly. Yes. You sound certain. I am. How? Because I have too much to lose. He looked at her. You and Lily, this life we've built, I'm not giving that up. Not to Thomas Hartwell, not to anyone. And if he brings 20 men instead of 10, 50? Then we fight 50 men. That's not a strategy, Ethan. That's suicide. Maybe. But I've already lost one family. I'll be damned if I lose another. Marianne turned to face him fully. Is that what we are? Family? Aren't we? She reached up, touched his face. Her fingers were cold against his skin. When this is over, we'll talk. I promised. No. Her voice was firm. When this is over, we'll do more than talk. Because I'm tired of waiting, tired of being careful. I want a life, Ethan. A real life. With you, with Lily. I want mornings that don't start with fear and nights that end in peace. I want to watch my daughter grow up safe. And I want... She stopped, swallowed hard. I want to love you, she whispered. Openly, without shame or fear. And I want you to love me back. Ethan's heart hammered. Marianne, you don't have to say anything. Not now. Just know that's what I'm fighting for. Not just survival, but a future. Our future. Before he could respond, she kissed him. It was different from the gentle kisses on his cheek. This was desperate, hungry, full of everything she couldn't say and everything she feared she'd never get the chance to feel. Ethan pulled her closer, his hands tangling in her hair. The blankets fell away. Neither of them noticed the cold. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Marianne rested her forehead against his. Whatever happens, she said, I need you to know I meant that. Every word. I know. And? He smiled despite everything. And when this is over, I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel, in detail, for as long as you'll listen. That could take a while. I've got time. She laughed, soft, fragile, but real. Hold me to it. I will. They stood together under the stars, holding each other against the cold and the fear and the approaching storm. The next morning, a single rider appeared on the valley's ridge. Ethan recognized him immediately. Not from appearance, the distance was too great for that, but from bearing. From the way he sat his horse like he owned the world. Thomas Hartwell had arrived. The man sat motionless on the ridge for a long time, silhouetted against the pale morning sky. Even at this distance, Ethan could feel the weight of his gaze sweeping across the valley, taking in the burned barn, the fortified cabin, the defensive positions Frank and the others had helped build. Calculating. Assessing. Behind him, Marianne drew in a sharp breath. That's him, she whispered. That's Thomas. Ethan didn't take his eyes off the rider. You're sure? I'd know him anywhere. The certainty in her voice carried years of fear, years of watching and waiting for this exact moment. Ethan felt her move closer, felt the tremor running through her body despite her attempt at control. How many men did he bring? She asked. Ethan scanned the tree line behind the lone rider, caught glimpses of movement, the glint of metal, horses shifting in the shadows. Hard to say. More than 3. Less than 20, I think. That's still too many. I know. Thomas Hartwell raised one arm in what might have been a greeting or a signal. Then he turned his horse and disappeared back into the trees, taking his men with him. The valley fell silent again. What does it mean? Marianne's voice was tight. Why didn't he attack? He's letting us know he's here, letting the fear build. Ethan finally turned to look at her. It's a tactic. Keep your enemy on edge. Wear them down before the first shot is fired. It's working. He touched her shoulder. We knew this was coming. We're as ready as we can be. Are we? She gestured at the cabin, at the makeshift defenses. Look at this place, Ethan. It's not a fortress. It's a home. And we're about to turn it into a battlefield. We don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Her eyes were desperate. We could run, right now, take Lily and just go. Where? He'd hunt us down before we made it 5 miles. And even if we got away, you'd spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Ethan shook his head. No. This ends here. Today. Tomorrow. Whenever he decides to make his move. But it ends. Marianne closed her eyes. When she opened them again, some of the desperation had been replaced by resignation. Then we fight. Then we fight. Inside the cabin, Lily sat at the table drawing pictures with the precious pencils Marianne had saved. She looked up when they entered, her young face too solemn for a child. "Was that him?" she asked. "Was that my father?" Marianne knelt beside her daughter. "Yes, baby, that was him." "Is he going to take us away?" "No." Marianne's voice was iron. "He's not." "But what if—" "No." Marianne cupped Lily's face in her hands. "Listen to me. Whatever happens, you are not going back to that house. You are not going back to that life. Do you understand?" Lily nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'm scared, Mama." "I know. So am I. But we're together, and we have Ethan, and we have friends who are going to help us. That's more than we've ever had before." Ethan watched them, mother and daughter clinging to each other, and felt something fierce and protective surge through him. Thomas Hartwell could bring an army. It wouldn't matter. He'd go through every last one of them before he let that man touch either of these two. A knock at the door made them all jump. Ethan had his rifle up before the second knock came. "Easy," Frank's voice called from outside. "It's just me." Ethan opened the door. Frank stood there with Bill Harding and 3 other men from town, all armed, all grim-faced. "We saw the rider," Frank said. "Figured it was time to take positions." "It's not your fight," Ethan said, though his heart wasn't in the argument. "We've been over this. Where do you want us?" Ethan looked at the men, saw their determination, their loyalty. "Bill, you and Tom take the east side. Frank, you're with me here at the cabin. The rest of you spread out, cover the approaches. And for the love of everything, don't fire unless they fire first. I want the law on our side when this is over." "If we're still alive when this is over," Tom muttered. "We will be." Ethan's voice carried more confidence than he felt. "Thomas Hartwell wants his family back. He won't risk killing them in crossfire. That gives us an advantage." "Some advantage," Bill said. "Man's crazy enough to hunt them halfway across Montana. Who knows what he'll do?" "I know exactly what he'll do." Marianne stepped forward, Lily still clutched against her side. "He'll try to separate us. Me from Lily, both of us from Ethan. He'll use threats, promises, anything to get what he wants. And when that doesn't work, he'll use violence. But he won't retreat. Thomas doesn't know how to lose." Frank studied her. "You know him well." "I was married to him for 7 years. I know exactly what he's capable of." The men shifted uncomfortably. Finally, Frank nodded. "Then we make sure he doesn't get close enough to try any of it. Come on, boys. Let's get into position." They filed out. Ethan barred the door behind them, checked the window shutters, verified their ammunition stores. Everything they could prepare for, they'd prepared for. Now came the hardest part. Waiting. The day dragged on with terrible slowness. Ethan kept watch from the window while Marianne tried to keep Lily occupied. They read stories, worked on letters, played quiet games, but the tension bled through everything. Even Lily's usual chatter had dried up, replaced by anxious silence. It was late afternoon when the delegation arrived. 2 men rode into the clearing, hands raised, carrying a white cloth tied to a stick. Ethan recognized the tactic immediately. They wanted to talk. "Don't go out there," Marianne said urgently. "It's a trap." "Maybe. But if there's a chance to end this without bloodshed, I have to try." Ethan, stay inside. Keep Lily safe. If shooting starts, you know what to do." He didn't wait for her response, just grabbed his rifle and stepped outside, keeping the cabin between himself and the approaching riders until he could assess the situation properly. The 2 men stopped 20 yards out. One of them was older, graying, with the weathered look of someone who'd spent his life outdoors. The other was younger, harder, with cold eyes that tracked Ethan's every movement. "We're here to talk," the older man called. "Mr. Hartwell wants to parley. Then let him come himself. He's willing to meet, but he wants assurances of safety." Ethan almost laughed. "He brings armed men to my home, burns my barn, sends hired guns to attack in the night, and now he wants assurances of safety?" "Past misunderstandings. Mr. Hartwell simply wants his family returned." "They're not his family anymore." The younger man's hand drifted toward his weapon. The older one shot him a warning look, then turned back to Ethan. "Be reasonable. This can end peacefully. Mr. Hartwell is prepared to offer compensation for any inconvenience. He's even willing to overlook the death of his employee given the circumstances." How generous. All he asks is that you return his wife and daughter. They belong with him. They belong to themselves, and they've chosen to stay here. A woman can't simply choose to abandon her marriage. There are laws that say a man can beat his wife, beat his child. Ethan's voice went cold. Those aren't laws worth following. The older man's expression flickered. For just a moment, Ethan saw something like shame there, but it passed quickly, replaced by professional neutrality. Will you meet with Mr. Hartwell or not? Ethan considered. Meeting face-to-face with Thomas Hartwell was dangerous, potentially fatal, but it might also give him insight into the man's plans, his weaknesses. Tomorrow morning, dawn. Neutral ground, the clearing by the North Creek. He comes alone. I come alone. We talk. The older man nodded. I'll relay your terms. They turned their horses and rode away. Ethan watched until they disappeared into the trees, then went back inside. Marianne was waiting, her face pale. What did they want? Thomas wants to meet. Talk things over. You can't seriously be considering it. I already agreed. Tomorrow morning. Ethan, no. It's too dangerous. He'll kill you. Maybe. But I don't think so. Not yet, anyway. He wants you and Lily more than he wants me dead. That gives me leverage. What kind of leverage? You can't negotiate with someone like Thomas. He doesn't compromise. He doesn't bargain. He takes what he wants and destroys anyone who gets in his way. Then I'll make sure I'm not in his way. I'll make sure the only way to get to you is through me. Marianne grabbed his arm. And when he decides to go through you, what then? Ethan met her eyes, saw the fear there, the love she was finally admitting to. Then at least I'll have seen it coming. That night was the longest of Ethan's life. He tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every sound made him reach for his rifle. Every shadow seemed like a threat. Beside him, Marianne lay awake too. He could hear her breathing, quick and shallow with anxiety. Finally, near midnight, she spoke into the darkness. When you meet him tomorrow, don't let him get in your head. I won't. I mean it. Thomas is good at finding weakness, at twisting words until you question yourself. He'll try to make you doubt. Doubt me, doubt this, doubt everything. What could he possibly say that would make me doubt you? She was quiet for a moment. He'll tell you I'm lying, that I'm exaggerating, that I was an unfaithful wife who abandoned her responsibilities. Were you? No. Her voice was fierce. But he'll make it sound convincing. He always does. Ethan rolled onto his side, found her hand in the darkness. I know who you are, Marianne. Whatever he says, it won't change that. Her fingers tightened around his. Promise me something. Anything. If he kills you tomorrow, if things go wrong and I lose you, promise me you won't die thinking I wasn't worth it. You are worth it, both of you. Promise me. I promise. She moved closer, her head finding his shoulder. They lay like that until dawn, not sleeping, just holding each other against what tomorrow might bring. The sun rose cold and clear. Ethan dressed quietly, checked his weapons, drank coffee he didn't taste. Marianne watched him with red-rimmed eyes. Lily stayed in bed, pretending to sleep but fooling no one. I'll be back in an hour, Ethan said. And if you're not? Then you take Lily and you run. Frank will help. He'll get you to the next town, get you on a stage heading west. Don't stop until you hit the ocean. Ethan, promise me. She crossed to him, pulled his face down to hers, kissed him hard and desperate. Come back to me. I will. Outside, the valley was silent. Frost covered everything, turning the world into crystal. Ethan walked toward the North Creek, his breath coming in white clouds, his rifle comfortable and familiar in his hands. The clearing was empty when he arrived. He took up a position against a large boulder, giving himself cover and a clear line of sight to all approaches. Then he waited. Thomas Hartwell appeared exactly at dawn, riding a magnificent black horse that must have cost more than most men earned in a year. He was younger than Ethan expected, mid-30s at most, with handsome features and expensive clothes that seemed absurd in the Montana wilderness. But it was his eyes that caught Ethan's attention. Cold, calculating, completely devoid of empathy. The eyes of a man who saw people as possessions. Thomas dismounted, tied his horse to a tree, and walked forward with the confidence of someone who'd never truly faced consequences. You must be Ethan Cole, he said. His voice was cultured, educated, the voice of money and privilege. And you're Thomas Hartwell. I am. Thomas looked around the clearing, at the creek frozen at the edges, at the pine trees heavy with snow. Beautiful country. I can see why you chose it. I chose it because it's isolated, private. Indeed, privacy is valuable, but it does make one vulnerable, doesn't it? When trouble comes, there's no one to help. Thomas smiled. Lucky for you, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here to reclaim what's mine and leave you in peace. Marianne and Lily aren't yours anymore. Legally, they absolutely are. Marianne is my wife, Lily is my daughter. The law is quite clear on this matter. The law also says you can't beat them. Thomas's smile didn't waver. I have never beaten my wife or child. If Marianne has made such claims, she's lying. She tends to dramatize, to exaggerate. It's part of her condition. Her condition. She suffers from nervous hysteria, delusions. It's why she needs my care, my guidance. Without it, she becomes confused, makes poor choices. Thomas spread his hands. Running away with our daughter, dragging her through a Montana winter, imposing on strangers. These are not the actions of a rational woman. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. Marianne had warned him about this, about how Thomas would twist reality, make himself the victim and her the villain. She seems plenty rational to me. Of course she does. She's very good at pretending, very convincing when she wants to be. But I know her, Mr. Cole. I know her weaknesses, her lies, her manipulations, and I know she's turned you against me with her stories. She's shown me her bruises, old injuries, from falls, accidents. Marianne is clumsy, prone to hurting herself. I've tried to protect her, but, he sighed, the picture of a frustrated, caring husband. She doesn't make it easy. Ethan studied the man in front of him, saw the careful facade, the practiced concern, and underneath it all, the absolute certainty that he would get what he wanted. Why did she run? Ethan asked. I told you, her condition. She becomes paranoid, imagines threats that don't exist. This isn't the first time she's tried to leave, but she always comes back, always realizes she needs me. And the men you sent to retrieve her, the ones who burned my barn, killed my horse, tried to kill me? Thomas's expression hardened. That was unfortunate. My employees exceeded their instructions. I wanted a peaceful resolution. They took matters into their own hands. I've since dismissed them from my service. I'll accept the ones waiting in the trees right now. Thomas smiled again, and this time it was genuine. I'm not a fool, Mr. Cole. Did you really think I'd come here alone and unarmed? But those men are for protection only. I'm hoping we can resolve this civilly. Then walk away. Leave them here. Start over somewhere else without them. Start over? Thomas laughed. Why would I start over? I have a successful business, social standing, a beautiful home. All I'm missing is my family, and you're going to give them back to me. No, I'm not. The temperature in the clearing seemed to drop. Thomas's smile faded. Let me be clear about something, Mr. Cole. I am not asking for your permission. I am not negotiating. I am informing you of how this will proceed. You will return my wife and daughter. In exchange, I will not press charges for kidnapping, for harboring a fugitive, for the murder of my employee. I will even compensate you for your barn and horse. This is a generous offer. You should take it. And if I don't, then I will take them by force, and you will die trying to stop me. Is that really what you want? To die for a woman you barely know? For a child who isn't yours? Ethan stood, stepped away from the boulder, faced Thomas Hartwell across 10 feet of frozen ground. I know them well enough to know they're terrified of you, well enough to know you hurt them, and well enough to know that I'll die before I let you take them back to that life. Thomas's face twisted with rage. You self-righteous bastard! You think you're noble? You're just another fool who believes her lies. But you'll learn. When she turns on you, when she shows her true nature, you'll understand exactly why I had to discipline her. There it is, Ethan said quietly, the truth under all that polish. The truth is she belongs to me, and I will have her back, with or without your cooperation. Thomas turned toward his horse. You have until tonight. Bring them to the ridge where I first appeared before sunset. If you don't, my men and I will come and take them. And anyone who stands in our way will be dealt with accordingly. He mounted his horse, looked down at Ethan with cold contempt. You're going to regret this, Mr. Cole. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Neither do you. Thomas rode away without another word. Ethan waited until he was out of sight, then started back to the cabin. His hands were shaking, not with fear, but with rage. Everything Marianne had said was true. Thomas Hartwell was a monster hiding behind money and manners and carefully crafted lies. And in a few hours, that monster was coming with armed men to take back what he considered his property. Ethan found Frank and the others waiting at the cabin. Marianne stood in the doorway, her face pale but composed. "How did it go?" Frank asked. "About as expected. He wants them back by sunset. If we don't comply, he attacks." "How many men does he have?" "I counted 8 horses in the trees, could be more." Bill Harding cursed. 8 against 6. And they've got better weapons, better position. "But we've got something they don't," Ethan said. "We've got something to fight for. They're just hired guns doing a job. We're protecting family." The men looked at each other. Finally, Frank nodded. "Then we make our stand here, and whatever happens, we make it count." Marianne came down the steps. "There's another option." Everyone turned to look at her. "I could go with him," she said quietly. "End this before anyone else gets hurt." "No." Ethan's voice was flat. "Absolutely not." "It's my choice." "No." He crossed to her, took her shoulders. "You go back to him. He'll kill you. Maybe not right away, but eventually. And Lily will grow up watching it happen, learning that this is what love looks like. Is that what you want?" Tears streamed down her face. "I don't want anyone to die because of me." "Then help us fight. You're a good shot. You've proven that. We need you." "Oh, but Lily." "We'll be in the back room, safe as we can make her. And when this is over, she'll know her mother stood up to the man who hurt her. She'll know that sometimes you have to fight for the life you want." Marianne looked at the men gathered around them, then back at Ethan. "You're sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything." She nodded slowly. "Then we fight." They spent the remaining hours preparing. Every weapon was loaded, every position reinforced. Ethan placed the men strategically, gave them clear fields of fire, established fallback positions if the initial defense failed. Marianne took up a position at the main window, rifle ready. Lily sat in the back room with supplies, water, strict instructions not to come out no matter what she heard. As the sun began its descent toward the western peaks, Ethan stood in the center of his cabin and looked at the people who'd become his unlikely family. Frank, who'd shown up when it mattered. Bill and the others who'd risked everything for someone they barely knew. Marianne, who'd found strength she didn't know she had. And Lily, innocent and brave, hiding in the darkness. "Whatever happens," he said quietly, "I want you to know I'm grateful. For all of it." "Save the speeches for after," Frank said. "We've got work to do." The sun touched the mountains. Shadows stretched across the valley. And from the tree line, riders emerged. 8 of them, just as Ethan had counted. They spread out in a line, weapons visible, faces hard. Thomas Hartwell rode in the center, his black horse gleaming in the dying light. They stopped 50 yards from the cabin, close enough to talk, close enough to kill. Thomas's voice carried clear across the snow. "Last chance, Mr. Cole. Send them out, and this ends peacefully." Ethan stepped into the doorway, rifle raised. "Go to hell, Hartwell." Thomas's expression didn't change. He raised one hand, gave a signal. His men opened fire. The world exploded into noise and smoke and chaos. Bullets shattered windows, splintered wood, whined past Ethan's head. He dove for cover, returned fire, heard the others doing the same. The battle for the valley had begun. The first volley hit like thunder. Ethan felt a bullet graze his shoulder as he rolled behind the heavy oak table he'd repositioned that morning. The pain was sharp but distant, drowned out by adrenaline and the deafening roar of gunfire. "Frank, left flank!" he shouted. Frank's rifle cracked in response. Through the smoke and chaos, Ethan saw one of Thomas's men clutch his leg and fall from his horse. 7 left. Marianne fired from the window, her movements controlled despite the chaos. Another of Thomas's men jerked backward, the hired guns scattered, seeking cover behind rocks and trees, their initial confidence shaken by the coordinated defense. But Thomas himself hadn't moved. He sat his black horse in the center of the clearing, perfectly still, watching the battle unfold with the detached interest of someone watching a chess game. "He's not even trying to hide," Marianne said, her voice tight with fear and confusion. Ethan understood immediately. Thomas wasn't worried because he didn't need to be. He had money, connections, enough hired guns to replace the ones he lost. This was just the opening move. "He's testing us," Ethan called out. Seeing what we've got, how we respond. Don't waste ammunition on distant targets. Wait for clear shots. The gunfire slowed as both sides reassessed. In the brief lull, Ethan heard Lily crying from the back room. His heart clenched, but he couldn't go to her, not now. Marianne heard it too. Her hands tightened on her rifle, but she stayed at her post. She's safe, Ethan said. The back room's the most protected part of the cabin. I know, but she's scared. A bullet shattered the window frame inches from Marianne's head. She ducked, came back up, returned fire without hesitation. Outside, Thomas raised his hand again. His remaining men withdrew to the tree line, dragging their wounded with them. The sudden silence was almost worse than the gunfire. What are they doing? Bill called from his position. Regrouping, Ethan said. They'll try something different now. He was right. As the sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the snow, Thomas's men began to move through the trees, circling the cabin, looking for weak points in their defense. They're trying to flank us, Frank said. If they get around back, I know. Ethan made a quick decision. Bill, Tom, fall back to the cabin. We can't defend separate positions anymore. We consolidate here. The men moved quickly, abandoning their outer positions and retreating to the cabin under covering fire from Ethan and Marianne. Bullets kicked up snow around their feet, but they made it inside. Now all 6 defenders were packed into the small space, rifles bristling from every window and gun port Ethan had cut in the walls. We're sitting ducks, Tom muttered. We're a fortress, Ethan corrected. They can surround us, but they can't get in without exposing themselves. And every minute we hold them off is another minute closer to nightfall. What happens at nightfall? Marianne asked. They either have to attack in darkness, which gives us the advantage since we know this ground, or they have to wait until morning. Either way, it buys us time. But Thomas Hartwell wasn't interested in waiting. As the last light faded from the sky, one of his men sprinted from the trees toward the cabin, carrying something that burned bright in the darkness. Fire! Frank shouted. They all fired at once, but the runner was fast, zigzagging, making himself a difficult target. He made it within 20 yards of the cabin before Bill's shot caught him in the chest. The man fell, and the burning object, a torch soaked in oil, landed in the snow and sputtered out. But the message was clear. They'd try to burn them out, just like they'd burned the barn. We need to end this, Marianne said, before they find a way to get fire to the cabin with Lily inside. Ethan knew she was right. Defense could only last so long. Eventually, Thomas would find a way through their perimeter, or the defenders would run out of ammunition, or someone would make a mistake. They needed to go on offense. I'm going out there, Ethan said. Every head turned toward him. That's suicide, Frank said flatly. Maybe, but it's the only way to end this. Thomas wants a confrontation. He wants to prove he can take what's his, so I'll give him what he wants. Just him and me. He won't fight fair, Marianne said. The moment you step outside, his men will kill you. Not if I have leverage. Ethan looked at her. Not if he knows that the moment I die, you and Lily disappear, that Frank will get you away from here, and Thomas will never find you again. Understanding dawned in Marianne's eyes. You're going to offer him a deal. I'm going to force him into single combat. His pride won't let him refuse. Not in front of his men. And if you lose, then you run. Like we planned. Ethan, it's the only way, Marianne. We can't hold out forever, and I won't let that man take you back to hell. He touched her face, brief and gentle. Trust me. She caught his hand, pressed it against her cheek. Come back to me. I will. I promise. He went to the door, took a deep breath, and called out into the darkness. Hartwell, I want to talk. Silence. Then Thomas's cultured voice drifted back. I'm listening. You want your wife and daughter. I want you gone. So let's settle this the old way, you and me. Single combat. Winner takes all. Laughter echoed from the trees. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Or are you afraid to face me without your hired guns backing you up? The laughter stopped. Ethan had struck the nerve he was aiming for, Thomas's pride, his need to prove dominance. What are the terms? Thomas called. We meet in the center of the clearing, just us. No weapons except what we carry on our bodies. We fight until one of us can't continue. If you win, I tell you where Marianne and Lily are hiding. If I win, you and your men ride away and never come back. And how do I know you'll honor the terms? You don't, but you know I'm a man of my word. You've seen that over these past months. Can your hired guns say the same about you? Another silence. Ethan could almost hear Thomas calculating, weighing options, considering angles. "All right," Thomas said finally. "Single combat, but I choose the weapons." "What weapons?" "Knives." A cold knot formed in Ethan's stomach. Knife fighting was brutal, intimate, required skill he wasn't sure he had. But he'd issued the challenge. He couldn't back down now. "Agreed," he called. "Give me 5 minutes to say goodbye." He stepped back inside. The others were staring at him with expressions ranging from admiration to horror. "That's the bravest, stupidest thing I've ever heard," Frank said. "Probably." Ethan began stripping off his heavy coat, his vest, anything that would restrict movement. "But it's done. Frank, if I don't make it back, you get them out of here. There's money hidden under the floorboard by the stove. Take it. Use it to get them west." "You're coming back," Frank said firmly. Ethan turned to Marianne. She stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. "You can't do this," she whispered. "Thomas was in the military. He knows how to fight. He'll kill you." "Maybe, but I'm fighting for something he can't understand. That gives me strength he doesn't have." "Love isn't armor, Ethan. It won't stop a blade." "No, but it'll make me faster, stronger, more determined than any hired soldier fighting for money." He pulled her close, kissed her hard. "I'm coming back to you, to both of you. I swear it." He went to the back room. Lily sat huddled into the corner, her doll clutched tight, eyes huge in her pale face. "Ethan?" Her voice was so small. "Are you going to fight my father?" "Yes." "Are you going to win?" He knelt in front of her. "I'm going to try my very best, and while I'm out there, I need you to be brave. Can you do that for me?" She nodded, tears tracking down her cheeks. "Good girl." He kissed her forehead. "When this is over, we're going to have a real family. You, your mama, and me. I promise." "I love you, Ethan." The words hit him like a physical blow. He hadn't expected them, hadn't prepared for the raw emotion they carried. "I love you too, little one." He stood, made himself walk away before his resolve could falter. At the door, he paused, looked back at Marianne one last time. "I'll see you soon." Then he stepped out into the cold Montana night. Thomas was already in the clearing, his expensive coat discarded, a long knife gleaming in his hand. The hired guns had formed a loose circle around the space, torches held high to provide light. Their faces were impassive, professional. This was just another job to them. Ethan walked forward slowly, his own knife, a sturdy hunting blade he'd owned for years, held loosely at his side. He studied Thomas as he approached, looking for weaknesses, for tells. The other man looked confident, relaxed. Too relaxed. "Last chance to back out," Thomas said. "Tell me where they're hiding and I'll make this quick." "No deal," Thomas shrugged. "Your funeral." They began to circle each other, feet crunching in the snow. The clearing had gone silent except for the crackle of torches and their breathing. Thomas struck first, a lightning-fast slash aimed at Ethan's throat. Ethan jerked back, felt the blade whisper past his skin. Close. Too close. He countered, aiming low, trying to cut Thomas's leg. The other man danced away, laughing. "You're slower than I expected. All that time in the wilderness made you soft." Ethan didn't respond. He was learning Thomas's rhythm, his patterns. The man fought like he did everything else, with arrogance, with the assumption that he'd already won, that arrogance was going to be his downfall. They clashed again, blades scraping, sparking. Thomas was skilled, no question. His military training showed in every movement, every calculated strike. But Ethan had something Thomas lacked: desperation. He fought like a man with everything to lose, taking risks Thomas wouldn't consider. When Thomas aimed for his chest, Ethan stepped into the attack instead of away, accepting a shallow cut to his ribs in exchange for an opening. His blade found Thomas's shoulder. Drew blood. Thomas's eyes widened in surprise. Then in rage, "You bastard!" he hissed. The fight intensified. They moved across the clearing in a deadly dance, blades flashing in the torchlight. Ethan felt cuts opening on his arms, his chest, felt blood running hot down his skin. But he gave as good as he got, marking Thomas again and again. The hired guns watched in silence. This wasn't their fight. They'd been paid to retrieve a woman and child, not to watch their employer bleed. Thomas lunged, overextending. Ethan saw the opening, took it. He caught Thomas's wrist, twisted, used the man's own momentum against him. They went down together in the snow, grappling, knives forgotten as they fought for dominance. Thomas was strong, but Ethan was bigger. He got an arm around Thomas's throat, squeezed. The other man thrashed, clawed, tried to break free. "Yield," Ethan growled. "Yield and this ends." "Never," Thomas choked out. "She's mine. The child is mine." "They're not yours. They're not anyone's. They're free." Thomas's hand found a rock, swung it hard into Ethan's temple. Stars exploded across his vision. His grip loosened. Thomas rolled away, gasping, reaching for his knife. Ethan shook his head, trying to clear it, saw Thomas coming at him, blade raised high. No time to dodge. No time to... A gunshot cracked across the clearing. Thomas jerked, stumbled, looked down at the blood spreading across his chest. His knife fell from his hand. He turned slowly. Marianne stood at the edge of the clearing, rifle raised, her face carved from stone. "I told you to stay inside," Ethan said weakly, "and I told you I wouldn't let him take you from us." She kept the rifle trained on Thomas as he sank to his knees. "It's over, Thomas. You lost." Thomas laughed, blood bubbling from his lips. You think this is over? I have lawyers, money, connections. They'll come after you. They'll take Lily. You'll never be free." "Yes, we will." Marianne's voice was steady. "Because you're not going to tell them anything. You're going to disappear into these mountains, and no one will ever know what happened to you." You can't." Thomas's eyes were going glassy. "Lily is my daughter, my blood. Lily is her own person, and she deserves better than you." Thomas tried to say something else, but the words wouldn't come. He swayed, fell forward into the snow, and went still. The clearing fell silent. One of the hired guns stepped forward. "Ma'am, we were paid to retrieve you and the child. Mr. Hartwell is dead. That means our contract is void." "Then leave," Marianne said. "All of you, leave and forget you were ever here." The men looked at each other. Finally, the spokesman nodded. "Yes, ma'am. But for what it's worth, he had it coming." They gathered their wounded, mounted their horses, and rode away into the darkness. Within minutes, it was as if they'd never been there at all. Ethan stood on shaking legs. His vision swam. He'd lost blood, taken hits to the head. But he was alive. They were alive. Marianne ran to him, caught him as he stumbled. "You're hurt." "I'll live." "You promised you'd come back to me." "And I keep my promises." Frank and the others emerged from the cabin. They took in the scene, Thomas's body in the snow, the blood, the evidence of the brutal fight. "We'll take care of this," Frank said quietly. "There's a ravine about 5 miles north, deep. He'll never be found." "I can't ask you to." "You're not asking. We're offering. That man came here to do violence. He got what he deserved." Frank looked at the others. "Any objections?" They all shook their heads. "Then it's settled. We bury him deep, we keep our mouths shut, and as far as anyone knows, Thomas Hartwell never made it to Montana." They worked through the night. Ethan was too injured to help much, but the others managed. Thomas's body was wrapped, loaded onto a horse, taken away. The blood in the snow was covered with fresh powder. The evidence was erased. By dawn, it was as if the battle had never happened, except for the bodies of the 2 hired guns who'd died in the initial assault. For them, they crafted a different story. Men who'd attacked an isolated ranch, been killed in self-defense. The law, when it eventually came, would accept that version. Frontier justice was still justice. In the cabin, Marianne tended Ethan's wounds with gentle hands. The cuts were numerous but mostly shallow. The head wound worried her most. "You might have a concussion," she said, cleaning dried blood from his face. "I've had worse." "When?" "Never." He caught her hand. "Thank you for the shot, for saving my life. You were saving ours. It seemed only fair to return the favor." Lily appeared in the doorway, hesitant. "Is he gone? Is my father really gone?" Marianne pulled her daughter close. "Yes, baby. He's gone. He can't hurt us anymore." "Never?" "Never." Lily looked at Ethan. "Does that mean we can stay? We can really stay here?" Ethan smiled despite the pain. "If your mama wants to. This can be your home for as long as you like." "Forever?" "Forever." Lily's face lit up with a smile that made every injury, every risk, every moment of fear worthwhile. The next weeks passed in a blur of healing and rebuilding. The law came, asked questions, accepted the self-defense story without much scrutiny. Frontier life was hard, and sometimes hard men met hard ends. That was just how it was. Frank and the others helped rebuild the barn, bigger than before, stronger. The community rallied, bringing supplies, labor, support. Word spread about what had happened, and public opinion firmly sided with the woman and child who'd been hunted by a violent man. No one questioned where Thomas Hartwell had gone. And no one cared to look too hard. Spring came early that year, melting the snow and revealing the valley in all its wild beauty. Grass sprouted green, flowers bloomed, the creek ran full and clear. Ethan stood in the doorway of the new barn, watching Marianne hang laundry in the sunshine while Lily played nearby with a new horse, a gentle mare Frank had brought as a gift. "She's healing," Marianne said, coming to stand beside him. "I can see it in her eyes. The fear is fading." "What about you? Are you healing?" She considered the question. "I think so. It's strange. I spent 7 years afraid, and now I keep waiting for something terrible to happen. But it doesn't. Days just pass, quiet and peaceful, and I have to remind myself this is real. It's real." "I know." She leaned against him. "And I'm grateful. Every single day, I'm grateful." They stood in comfortable silence, watching Lily brush the mare's mane with intense concentration. "You remember what you promised me?" Marianne asked. "Back when this was all happening. You said when it was over you'd tell me how you felt." "I remember. It's over now, so tell me." Ethan turned to face her fully. "I love you. I didn't mean to, didn't plan to. But somewhere between pulling Lily from that well and fighting for our lives, you became essential to me. You and Lily both. You're my family now. The family I thought I'd lost forever." Tears welled in Marianne's eyes. "You too, and I want to build a life with you, a real life. Not running, not hiding, just living." "Then that's what we'll do." He kissed her, soft and gentle, a promise of all the days to come. Lily's voice interrupted them. "Are you going to get married?" They broke apart, laughing. "Have you been eavesdropping?" Marianne asked. "Maybe." Lily grinned, completely unrepentant. "But are you? Because I think you should." Ethan knelt down to her level. "Would you like that? If your mama and I got married?" "Yes! Then you'd really be my father, not just someone who protects us. My real father." "I'd be honored to be your real father, Lily." "Then you should ask Mama properly. That's what they do in the stories." Marianne laughed, a sound of pure joy. "She's got a point." Ethan stood, took Marianne's hands in his. "Marianne Hartwell, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Of building this life with me? Of letting me love you and Lily for as long as we all shall live?" "Yes," she whispered. "Yes. Absolutely yes." They were married in June, in the valley with the mountains watching. Frank served as witness, along with half the population of Birch Creek. Lily wore a new dress and stood beside her mother, beaming with pride. Mrs. Patterson had tears in her eyes as she watched the ceremony. "I never thought I'd see Ethan Cole smile again," she told Frank, "let alone marry and take on a ready-made family." "Sometimes the best families are the ones we choose," Frank replied. The celebration lasted into the night. There was music, dancing, food, laughter. All the things that had been missing from that valley for too long. As the sun set and the stars came out, Ethan found himself sitting with Lily on the porch steps, watching Marianne talk with the other women. "Are you happy?" Lily asked. "Happier than I've been in a long time." "Me too." She leaned against his shoulder. "I used to be scared all the time, but not anymore, because I know you'll keep us safe." "I will. Always." "Do you think we'll have more family? Brothers or sisters for me?" Ethan looked at his new wife, at the life they were building together. "Maybe, if that's what you and your mama want." "I'd like that, a big family, so the house is always full of noise and love." "Then that's what we'll work toward." Lily was quiet for a moment, then, "Thank you for saving me. From the well. From my father. From everything. You saved me too, little one. More than you know." The years that followed were good ones. Hard sometimes, as frontier life always was, but good. The ranch prospered. Ethan and Marianne worked side by side, building something lasting. Lily grew tall and strong, losing her fear, finding her voice. 2 years after the wedding, Marianne gave birth to a son. They named him Daniel, after Ethan's first child. It felt right, a way of honoring the past while celebrating the future. 3 years after that, twin girls arrived, loud and healthy, and completely adored by their older siblings. The cabin expanded to accommodate them all. The barn filled with livestock. The valley rang with children's laughter and the sounds of a family truly living. On quiet evenings, Ethan would sometimes stand in the doorway and marvel at what they'd built. This life that had started with a child's scream from a well and ended in joy. Marianne would find him there, wrap her arms around him, rest her head against his back. "What are you thinking about?" she'd ask. "How lucky I am. How close I came to missing all of this." "But you didn't miss it. You chose it. You fought for it. We fought for it. Yes, we did." And that was the truth of it. What they had wasn't given. It was earned through courage and sacrifice and the simple, stubborn refusal to let fear win. Lily grew up strong and confident, eventually becoming a teacher in Birch Creek. She married a kind man who loved her fierce spirit, who never once raised his voice or his hand in anger. She had children of her own, and they called Ethan grandfather. On Lily's wedding day, as Ethan walked her down the aisle, she whispered, "You kept your promise. You gave us a family." "We all kept our promises," he replied. "We all chose each other." Daniel grew tall and serious, with his father's quiet strength and his mother's sharp mind. The twins were wild things, constantly getting into trouble and charming their way back out. The house was never quiet, never peaceful, and Ethan wouldn't have had it any other way. Years later, when his hair had gone silver and his hands had grown rough from a lifetime of work, Ethan sat on the porch with Marianne and watched the sunset paint the mountains gold and rose. "Do you ever regret it?" Marianne asked. "Taking us in? Fighting for us? All of it?" "Not for a single second." "Even when the twins put that frog in your boot?" He laughed. "Especially not then." She took his hand, their fingers intertwining naturally after decades of practice. "I never thanked you properly. For giving me my life back. For giving Lily a childhood. For being the man you are. You thank me every day. Just by being here. By choosing to stay. Where else would I be?" "Anywhere. You're free now. You could go anywhere, do anything." "I choose here. I choose you. I'll always choose you." As darkness fell and the stars emerged, their children's children played in the yard, safe, loved, free. The sound of their laughter carried on the wind, a testament to everything that had been fought for and won. Inside the house, the old, well-worn doll still sat on a shelf in what had been Lily's room. A reminder of the little girl who'd fallen into darkness and been pulled into light. Who'd told a grieving man he needed a wife and she needed a father, and had been brave enough to believe it could be true. The valley settled into peaceful night. The mountains stood watch. And in the warm glow of lamplight, a family gathered together, not bound by blood alone, but by choice, by love, by the fierce determination to protect what mattered most. They had been broken people once, scattered and afraid, but together they had built something whole. And it was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.